Horrific. Man murders girlfriend's child and disposes of infant's body. In early May 2021, a disturbing case unfolded in Las Vegas that would shake the local community and reveal the devastating consequences of domestic violence. At the center of this tragedy was a 2-year-old boy named Omori Nicholson, whose disappearance and subsequent death would expose a web of lies, deception, and ultimately, horrific violence. The story began on April 30, 2021, when 21-year-old Taylor Nicholson flew from Las Vegas to Colorado. Her trip was prompted by a family emergency. Her mother had suffered severe tendon injuries from a dog bite and required assistance following surgery. Before leaving, Taylor made arrangements for her 2-year-old son Omori to stay with her boyfriend, 27-year-old Tel Rhodes, at their residence in the Emerald Suites Hotel. What started as a temporary caregiving arrangement would soon spiral into a nightmare. During Taylor's absence, tensions between her and Tel escalated through increasingly heated phone calls and text messages. The strain in their relationship reached a breaking point. And in the early hours of May 3, Taylor ended their relationship via text message. Despite the breakup, Omori remained in Tel's care. 2 days later, on May 5 at approximately 6 a.m., Tel contacted Taylor with an alarming claim. He told her that a woman, identifying herself as Omori's paternal aunt, had come to their room and taken the child. According to Tel, he had tried to contact Taylor earlier but couldn't reach her. An hour after receiving this disturbing news, Taylor called the Las Vegas police to report what she believed was a possible kidnapping. The initial police response treated the incident as a potential custody dispute. This assumption would prove to be a critical misstep, based on Tel's claim that a paternal relative was involved. Authorities initially cancelled the Amber Alert they had issued. However, as investigators began digging deeper, troubling inconsistencies emerged in Tel's story. In an attempt to gain public support and sympathy, Taylor and Tel appeared together on local television news. During these interviews, they presented themselves as distraught parents desperate to find their missing child. Tel maintained his story about the mysterious woman who had taken Omori, while Taylor emphasized that she had never authorized anyone to pick up her son. Meanwhile, law enforcement's investigation was uncovering disturbing evidence. When officers accessed the room shared by Taylor and Tel at the Emerald Suites, they discovered blood on the wall and soiled children's clothing. Forensic technicians quickly processed these items for analysis. Additionally, investigators learned that within the past year, there had been at least one report made to Child Protective Services alleging abuse, though the agency had closed the case without taking action. The case took another turn when Omori's paternal relatives, working with the Nevada Child Seekers Organization, held a press conference to address the growing suspicions about their potential involvement. They categorically denied having any knowledge of Omori's whereabouts and expressed their willingness to help find him. As the investigation progressed, detectives eliminated the paternal relatives as suspects and began focusing their attention on Tel Rhodes. The Clark County District Attorney found no evidence linking Taylor to any crime, making Tel the primary person of interest. When brought in for questioning, Tel initially maintained his innocence. However, faced with DNA evidence from the blood found in the room, the soiled clothing, and incriminating video footage recovered from his phone, his facade began to crack. During the interrogation, Tel finally confessed to a horrific truth: he had killed Omori in a fit of rage after the toddler had soiled himself. The situation took an even more dramatic turn during Tel's arrest when he attempted to grab an officer's firearm, leading to a brief struggle before being subdued and taken into custody. He later provided investigators with a map leading to Omori's remains, bringing a heartbreaking end to the search for the missing toddler. The investigation was marked by a series of contradictory statements, particularly from Tel Rhodes and Taylor Nicholson. During their television interviews, several inconsistencies emerged that would later prove crucial to the case. One of the most significant contradictions came from Taylor's statements about whether someone was expected to visit their apartment. In her initial police report, she made no mention of arranging for anyone to come to the apartment. However, during the televised interview, she admitted to telling Tell that somebody would be by, though she claimed this was said in anger during an argument and wasn't meant to be taken literally. The case reached its legal conclusion in May 2024 when Tell Rhodes accepted a plea deal, entering a guilty plea to charges related to Omori's death. The judge sentenced him to 20 years to life in prison, with credit for time already served. Rhodes will not be eligible for parole until 2041. During his eventual confession, Tell revealed the horrific details of what truly happened to Omori. He admitted that he had become enraged when Omori had soiled himself, something that wasn't unusual for a toddler his age. The situation escalated quickly, with Tell striking the child. According to his statement, he claimed he didn't intend to kill Omori but lost control of his temper. Tell described how Omori had stopped breathing after the assault. He attempted CPR, he claimed, but was unsuccessful in reviving the child. Instead of calling for emergency services, he made the decision to conceal the crime, leading to his elaborate kidnapping story. The map Tell provided to investigators led them to a horrific discovery. Omori's remains were found in a remote area, carefully concealed. The medical examiner's report, while heavily redacted in public records, indicated that the toddler had suffered multiple injuries consistent with blunt force trauma. Further investigation revealed that the earlier Child Protective Services report had been filed by Omori's maternal grandmother, who had expressed concerns about Tell's behavior toward the child. While the report was ultimately closed without action, witnesses later came forward describing instances of Tell displaying aggressive behavior, particularly when frustrated with Omori's typical toddler behavior. This case highlights several tragic aspects of child abuse and domestic violence. The initial relationship between Taylor and Omori's biological father had been marked by violence, with the father serving prison time for abusing Taylor during her pregnancy. Unfortunately, this pattern of violence would continue with Tell Rhodes, though in an even more tragic way. The case also exposed some of the challenges law enforcement faces in missing children cases. The initial mischaracterization of the case as a custody dispute delayed the full investigative response that might have revealed the truth sooner. Additionally, the case demonstrated how perpetrators often attempt to manipulate public sympathy through media appearances, as both Taylor and Tell did in their television interviews. Perhaps most heartbreaking is the fact that there had been previous warnings. The Child Protective Services report, though ultimately closed without action, might have been an opportunity for intervention that could have saved Omori's life. This aspect of the case raises important questions about how society can better protect its most vulnerable members. The death of Omori Nicholson serves as a sobering reminder of the vulnerability of young children and the importance of recognizing and responding to signs of potential abuse. While justice was ultimately served with Rhodes's conviction, no legal punishment can truly compensate for the loss of a young life filled with such potential. Omori's case continues to resonate with the Las Vegas community as a tragic example of how domestic violence can escalate to the most devastating of conclusions.